Hi everyone. So two questions I do get asked is how do I write a book and how do I publish my book with no experience? Now I completely understand both those questions because a long time ago I was in exactly the same position. I wrote my first book in 1999, which was actually a business manual for my own hairdressing salons. And I finally got my very first published book in 2012 with a New York publisher, Morgan James. And since then, I've since published 21 books. Probably 40% of those books are self-published, and that is incredibly easy to do and easy to sell those books at the same time through the self-publishing. But tonight's call is we're going to really focus on how do I write my book and how do I publish my book, and how do I start thinking about doing this in 2023. Because, of course, every year we all do the usual thing, which is we have our usual New Year's resolution. And I suppose over the years, I've been guilty also making resolutions that never followed through because life just generally runs away with us. But it's important if you're going to start writing a book, you set some kind of goal. So what we're going to do is on this call, and there'll be more calls to follow this one, we're going to go through 4 easy steps for you to write a book, to publish a book with no experience, and to start thinking about it for 2023. So let's go through these steps. The first step really is to start thinking about it now. Don't start thinking about it in 2023. If you start thinking about it in 2023, the momentum has gone because you haven't planned for it, but you haven't allowed for your brain or your mind to digest the story and everything else that goes into the book. So you need to start processing that material right now. I'm not sure how many weeks it is away from 2023, 5 or 6. But a couple of things I would start thinking about myself if I was planning ahead into 2023, which I am doing for a new book also, is start thinking about the subject of the book. More often than not, people start their book with an idea, and that idea usually becomes the subject of the book. So, for instance, one of my very first published books is a book called Escape from Zumanity, which is a kind of an experience, small biography type book about my life experience and what I felt. It was probably coming out of the back of a divorce and a bankruptcy and other kind of things. So I wrote this book called Escape from Zumanity. And the idea, the subject was that Zumanity was actually humanity. And none of us were humans, we were all Zoomans. So in other words, like an elephant in a zoo doesn't live as long as an elephant in the wild, humans are also controlled within this zoo-like experience. So I don't want to talk about that book, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to start thinking about the subject or the idea of the book. And will this book be fiction? Will it be non-fiction? Will it be a legacy book? Will it be a biopic book? Will it be a business book? What kind of book is this going to be? Children, adult fiction? What will it be? Start thinking about the subject, which will lead you on to how do I start to build the content. Now, I know when I write my fiction, I usually have one particular character in mind. So I begin to start thinking about his or her character, and then the other characters attached to that character. For instance, what kind of personality does this character have? What kind of life has this character had? How old is this character? What exact age is this character? How does he look? How does he dress? Is he emotional? Is he a tough guy? And so on and so on and so forth. You need to start thinking about the character or the content of the book. What's going to go into the book and how will it grow and develop the more you write that book? And of course, the story is also part of the big idea because the story is the main theme that pulls everything together. So you may build character 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or maybe like saying War and Peace, there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens of characters that are hard to keep track of when you read a book like that. But every character has a lifetime personality. They have to do it, or it won't sound truly authentic within the book. It won't sound like you are really living the experience for those people. So think about the subject, think about the content, think about the type of book, and think about the characters, and of course the story. And that's the first step you need to take. And you need to start processing this right now. If you do it when 2023 arrives, it's far too late. Because in my experience with all my writing, the brain is of course, it's a wonderful machine, but it's a strange machine as well, because the brain will start doing the job for you as long as you bring in enough information that the brain can start to manipulate, push in different directions, bring out new things. And before you know it, the book you were thinking about when you went to bed will be a different book when you wake up in the morning. So you've got 6 weeks now to start thinking about that book. So plan ahead to a date, which we'll come on to. A date that you have in mind when you're going to start this book, but start planning now for 2023. The second thing I do, and of course, the way I write is probably different to the way lots of other writers write, is do your notes on paper. I'll be honest, I do a lot of notes on my phone, but I do most of my notes on paper. This is just one of dozens of handwritten notebooks that I have when I'm writing books. Down there at the back of the bottom shelf, on one of the far shelves, there's dozens of these things. When I'm writing a new book, I always buy a new notepad. Because the good thing about a notepad is, you can take it to the coffee shop and you can take it to bed. I like to, watch as little TV as possible. And, we tend to have quite an early night where we can sit and read and write lots of notes. Now, the good thing about a notepad is you have to remember when we are writing, that process is multi-dimensional. When we put the pen to the paper, because of the sound, because of the feel, because of the words going across the paper, and so forth, because it's multi-dimensional, it can actually invoke different feelings and different atmospheres also, which means that you will bring out a different kind of idea and a different kind of writing process and a different kind of book because you're doing it on paper. May sound old school. Lots of people like to use computer all the time. And quite honestly, when I'm writing, I prefer to write on my, I use a Mac, I write on my computer. But notepads are multi-dimensional. And of course, what I also want to I found a couple of examples for you. I hope you can see them. In notepads, my notepads tend to look a bit of a mess. Because what I tend to do is I usually start with a square in the middle with an idea. And that square in the middle with an idea, it's usually one or two different words. And as I'm writing those words, I usually tend to write a few keywords, buzzwords in there, a few little scribbles on there as well, little pictures and so on. And I tend to write my notes around the square block. I do that for fiction, I do that for my philosophy, I do that for my business books. You can see almost every page has a square in the middle where I write by hand that initial idea, write the idea there, and then I start writing in single lines, just expand on the idea. But I do that on paper. I do it on purpose on paper because the good thing about on paper is you can scribble things out easily. And I know what some of you tech guys will say when you watch this video, but you can do that on my computer. I can do that on my iPhone or whatever. Of course you can, but it's just easy on paper for me. And to be honest, I like that old school thing of writing down the ideas on paper. I'll tell you one thing I find interesting when I was actually preparing for this call. I was going through this particular one and a brown notepad that's lying over there. And there's an idea I wrote for a book in here with lots and lots of chapters, and to be honest, I take so many notes, I've forgotten about the idea. I just completely forgotten. So I've actually discovered a book in here. It's a philosophy book. And there was a book here called identity colonization, which I've started writing. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's 10 pages that are actually quite well written on. Lots of notes, and I completely forgotten about. So that is another reason I like to write on a notepad, because those ideas are there forever. Don't get me wrong, my iCloud, I've had to upgrade my iCloud God knows how many times because I write so much. I can open my iCloud or my folders. I have a folders. I have a new author, well, actually it says author AFS folder on my desk, which is my current stuff. I keep on my desk, and I can open that folder, and there's probably 400 documents in there, actually with some recent writings on there. So paper for me, tip number 2, do your notes on paper. You can go back to them time and time again. You can go back to them 10 years later. And the other interesting thing with paper is as well, if you have family or children, they can open those books and they go, God, I didn't know Dad was thinking about that kind of stuff. So there's lots of reasons to write on paper. And of course, tip number 3, once you have your book idea, don't be scared to change it. I've come across writers who are actually very fixed in their process. And of course, there's some very famous, very brilliant, truly brilliant authors that are very fixed in their ideas and very fixed in their process. But you know what? I've got a book here that I started writing in 2015. It's far too long gone by now. But I wrote that book mostly in first person. Now, unfortunately, there's 140,000 words or 120,000 words on this book. So it's a lot of it's about 500 pages. There's a lot of words on there that I wrote in first person, but I decided at some point this book is going to be better in third person. And I decided also to change some characteristics of the main character within the book. But I decided to change it. I'm committed to changing it. I haven't finished it yet. But what I'm saying to you is that don't be frightened of chasing the best book that you can deliver. And that means that you will have to change the book. You may have to change the book. And of course, that goes for the edit and everything else. But you know, books evolve and they can completely change from the idea in here to the idea that you put down in here to the idea that you finally publish. The 4th tip, and there's only four tips in this short video. The 4th tip I want to give you if you want to write a book is, and for God's sake, take this one serious because it's the key. And it's the key because we're all busy. We all have lives. I have 2 babies here. I have 4 grown-up children as well. You know, life's just very, very busy, and other businesses going on also. So to be able to write a book, you have to make an appointment with yourself. What does that actually mean? Well, let me tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that, okay, you know what? I'm a little bit free time. I'm going to spend some time writing that book. It will never happen because something will always come up. I mean, for instance, when I planned this call tonight, because I love Star Wars, and I realized, oh no, Andor has been released on a streaming tonight, episode 9 or 10. I want to watch Andor. I thought, well, I'll watch Andor anyway. I'll watch it after the call. So things always come up. But if you make an appointment with yourself, like I did, 8 o'clock tonight, and I'm terrible with appointments. I don't like people making for appointments for me, and I don't like making appointments. But the only way I get any books written is to actually make an appointment. So that means, as an example, Sunday, January the 8th, between 7 and 9 p.m., you have booked yourself in to start writing your book. And because you've made an appointment, that means like going to the dentist or the doctor, you will do it. And don't miss that appointment. Tell everyone in the house, this is what I'm doing. Tell them in advance, this is what you're doing. Put a sign on the door and tell nobody to come in. Tell everyone, they do not hassle you. You will not open the door. Do not knock on the door. You have a very serious appointment. And that appointment is for you and you only. And that appointment is for you to write your book. Now, I know there's only 4 tips on this to on starting how to write your book and how to publish your book, and we'll come into the rest of those things on the next call. But I just wanted to give you a fifth part to this, and that fifth part is prepare in advance a space in your home. Now, right now, I'm in my writing room. This is a room that I have in the basement of my house. No one is allowed in here when I'm writing. I have all my stuff here. I have my pens, I have my pad, I have my earphones, and my reference books, I have my notes, everything when I'm writing. Prepare the space. Will it have to be in a shed in the garden? I've done that, and that's fine. Is there going to be a space in the garage next to the car where you can put a desk where nobody will hassle you? Is it going to be in the roof space, in the attic, in the loft, or wherever you definitely will not be hassled? Make sure this is a life or death situation. If anybody comes in, you will kill them. Nobody is to disturb you during those 2 hours or 1 hour or 3 hours or whatever you want to do. So just on that fifth point, set the first date, set the time, physically write it in a book, write it on the wall so that you know that on January the 8th at 7 to 9 p.m., you will be writing your book. You will make a start to write that book. And this appointment is so critical, you will not miss that appointment. So, guys, thanks for listening to the first call. A lot more of these calls will be coming. I will ask you to do this. If you want more calls like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on this video. Will be on YouTube. The subscribe button on YouTube below, which is on the Write a Book Project channel. If you want to leave a question on YouTube, we will answer every and any question you have about writing to your book. And the third thing, if you want to keep up to date and you want tips coming through into your inbox and announcements, because we are starting a brand new writers course in January also. Just go to the website, writeabookproject.com, subscribe to the email, join our little gang of writers, our writers tribes for news, views, and all things writers. And until next time, happy writing. We'll see you on the next call. Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.